Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming today, and thank you also for our contributors online. My name's Una Murphy, and I'm a senior lecturer in journalism at the University of the West of England, UWE in Bristol, but I'm Belfast born and bred. So really welcome to our event today. I'm so pleased that people took the trouble to come out on a Saturday to be here with us. So the question posed by this symposium is, how do you make independent, local, public interest journalism sustainable? This event has been funded through UWE Bristol's Arts and Humanities Research Council Impact Acceleration Account Fund. The recent reports by MPs in the Digital Culture, Media and Sport DCMS Committee on sustainability of local journalism has set out the threats facing local journalism. And it was published before the cuts in local radio, which are planned by the BBC, which led to journalists to take strike action this week. And before the recent announcement of redundancies at Reach plc, the UK's largest commercial national and regional news publisher. The DCMS committee reports proposed establishing a public interest news fund, facilitating philanthropic funding to local news publishers, and ensuring that forthcoming digital markets legislation will allow smaller publishers of local news to reach fair commercial relationships with tech giants like Google and Meta. And talking about Google, I'm looking forward to hearing from MOBs from the Independent Community News Network, who has brokered a deal for independent journalism publishers to get revenue by uploading between 3 and 6 stories a day onto the Google News Showcase, which will lead to additional revenue for independent journalism publications. The Sustainability in Local Journalism report from MPs on the DCMS committee came 4 years after the Cairncross review, an independent report which flagged up challenges facing high-quality journalism in the UK. It would be fair to say that we know the problems. Time is ticking on, and an action plan is now needed. Organisations in civic society are leading the charge to bring about plans to create sustainability for local journalism outlets embedded in their communities. For example, in Wales, journalism practitioners, including members of the National Union of Journalists, are among those in a working group currently drafting a report on public interest journalism for the Welsh Government. Some might say that a radical approach is needed. Bristol has a history of alternative media, making it an interesting place for this discussion. I was delighted to take up a lecturing post in the city just under a year ago, as I have been involved in setting up an independent journalism outlet back home in Belfast, providing a different take on stories covered by the mainstream media and not covered at all in the mainstream media. Rachel Matthews from Coventry University, where I used to work, said to me, what is it about Bristol that makes it a useful location for alternative media? So hopefully we'll find out during this event. So joining us today in the watershed are Rachel Matthews, Elise Mason from the Bristol Cable, and joining us online are NME's Independent Community News Network, Francois Nell and Camilla Ramaggio from News Futures 2035, and Jonathan Haywood from the Public Interest News Foundation, which is launching a local news plan for Bristol, and he'll give us a sneak peek. A panel with representatives from England, Wales and Northern Ireland who are involved in local independent public interest journalism will be chaired by my colleague from UWE, Chris Brown, Senior Lecturer in Online Journalism and founder of Bristol 24/7. The panellists here in the watershed are Linda Tanner, an editor with Voice Hyper Local Publications in Bristol, David Floyd, Social Spider, he's the MD of the company, which is a social enterprise, and they run community newspapers in London. Brian Peelan, View digital editor, he edits Social Affairs magazine View and our website in Belfast. And Nick Powell, chair of the National Union of Journalists, Welsh Executive Council. Welcome all. This event is being recorded. The proceedings will be written up and distributed to everyone taking part. So please get involved and have your say in what I hope will be an enlightening and useful discussion that could lead to moving forward a local news plan for Bristol. So our first speaker is Jonathan Haywood, Executive Director of the Public Interest News Foundation, who's joining us online. Over to you, Jonathan.
I'm going to talk a bit about this project that we've been running at the Public Interest News Foundation over the last few months, where we worked in Bristol, amongst other places around the UK. I'll just very briefly explain who we are. So the Public Interest News Foundation is the first charity in the UK that exists entirely to support high quality independent journalism. We launched just before the pandemic, and we spent the last 3 years trying to do everything we can to build the capacity of those independent providers of public interest news, those like View Digital in Belfast, like The Cable in Bristol, and many others across the UK. So we do what we can to provide funding, leadership development, networking, to research the sector so that we can share best practice and understanding of what works and what's not working, and also to advocate on behalf of the sector alongside people like Emma at ICNN, who you'll hear from in a moment. So our basic animating belief is not just that independent news providers should have a nice life. I mean, we think they should, but really we believe in what we're doing because of the public. We think everybody in the UK should benefit from high quality journalism that speaks to them, for them, and with them. And it's the with them part of that equation that I really want to focus on today, because to go back to your question, Una, that you've set us, how do you make independent local public interest journalism sustainable? I just want to change one small word in that and think about how we make independent public interest journalism sustainable. Because I think our sort of animating belief is that unless this is working for the public, and unless the public are really buying in to what we're trying to achieve, not necessarily in a financial sense, but buying in a kind of emotional sense to what we're trying to achieve, then really what's the point? Independent journalism exists to support communities, and we want to feel communities really see the value in that.
We're going on to Emma Mees now. Emma Mees is the director of the Independent Community News Network, ICNN. So the new partnership between ICNN and Google News Showcase was just announced yesterday, and it has been described as an opportunity to cement the independent journalism sector within the wider UK media ecosystem. So over to you, Emma. Thank you.
So as Una said, it was a really, really big day for us yesterday. We had the launch of, or the announcement of the Google Showcase, which is a big deal. So my colleague and Deputy Director of ICNN, Matt Abbott, has been working tirelessly for about 18 months on the legalities behind the scenes of making this happen. So basically, what we managed to achieve and we could announce yesterday is that the Google News Showcase has been set up for a while, and traditionally has only worked with traditional news publishers. And so yesterday, in a watershed moment for the industry, 45 independent titles have now signed up to the Google News Showcase. And that'll mean they better connect to their audiences, they can strengthen their offering. And that means that they now get a financial support, which is provided by Google, and that'll help them build a much needed sustainable element and to cement the sector within the wider journalism ecosystem.
Right, super. Yeah, right. So I'm at Coventry. I've been there for quite a long time. Before that, I worked in local newspapers for a very long time. And so a lot of the perspective I come from, I mean, I have obviously got quite a lot of lived experience in the newspaper experience in the industry, but I have also, for my sins, written a history of the local newspaper as a form. So if anyone really wants to know more about the local newspaper, which is why I asked Una that question, because in Bristol there's a really strong tradition of resisting corporate newspaper ownership. So the Bristol Post was founded by people who put money together to buy that, to, you know, to set that paper up. And obviously now we've still got that same process at work in Bristol. And so it's often led me to wonder, what is it about Bristol that makes you so determined to have your own local news?